Have you ever consciously wondered, how do I talk to myself? The realm of our inner voice and our personal self-talk is extremely powerful. And I think it's very important for us to ask ourselves how our own self-perception is shaped by our inner dialogue, so we can win over our inner critic, the one and only that keeps on bugging you all the time, that makes you play small, that makes you doubt yourself, that makes you accept the unacceptable, the one that slows down your growth. It's by understanding the significance of our own personal self-talk that we can unlock our true potential and embrace our personal growth. So let's go and dig a little deeper into our own self-talk. Welcome to Conscious Matters. I'm Melissa. On this channel, I talk about conscious living through empowerment and holistic wellness, especially mindfulness. On average, we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And if you're like me, you might tend to voice these thoughts out loud when you're by yourself. And even though it's not out loud, we have this constant dialogue within ourselves every single day. And that inner voice influences our thoughts, emotions, and actions. So pretty much your inner world, what's going on inside of your head, inside of your body, has a huge influence on your outside world. But the tricky thing is that our inner voice has adopted certain habits from our youngest age to this day. And most of the time, that inner voice took on the words, the tone of our primary caregiver or authority figures when you were a child. The primary caregiver is oftentimes the mother. So if your mother is a perfectionist, your inner voice might have a lot of layers of perfectionism. If your mother is fearful, who never takes risk, who's always staying in her comfort zone because she's afraid of the outside world for whatever reason, you might have that inner voice that always stops you every time that you want to get out of your own comfort zone, every time that you're trying to make a change in your life. You might get very excited thinking about making that change, building that momentum within you, but following it with the word but, and stopping yourself right away from that momentum that you've been building. And all of that is, I'm not going to say 100%, but I would say very close to 100% subconscious. We don't realize the tone of our inner voice. We don't realize the words that we use with ourselves. We don't realize the harshness that we can express towards ourselves. And that's where awareness is so important. The more that we are aware of our own self-talk patterns, the more that we can gear the influence of our inner self-talk on our thoughts, emotions, and actions. The more we have a sense of control, or at least intentionality of the reality that we want to experience and that we can experience. And we get to that point when we pay attention to our language, the language that we use with ourselves. So mainly the words and the tone that we use with ourselves when talking to ourselves. And that is the conscious action that we have to take in order to gain insights on our own self-perception and to identify any negative or limiting beliefs that we're still carrying within ourselves that we're not even aware of. It's only by having this awareness, by gaining this awareness through digging a little deeper to be a little bit more conscious about how we address to ourselves, like I said before. And that awareness is the step that would allow us to adapt our own narrative. We believe in the story that we tell to ourselves. If every time that you make a mistake, your self-talk is, I'm so dumb to have failed. I'm so dumb for making that mistake. I'm so dumb because I don't know how to figure out the simplest things. If it's this story that you keep on repeating to yourself every single time that you make that mistake, that failure, or not managing to do that thing that you consider simple but you don't manage, you will start believing that. You will start believing that you are actually not that intelligent. And the consequence of that is that you are limiting your own self. It means that you won't apply to certain positions because you will feel like, I'm not smart enough. You won't follow certain of your passions because who am I to believe that I will be able to manage that thing out since I'm dumb or I'm not smart or not intelligent enough. And you will always feel like other people's opinions, other people's feedbacks and insights are more important than yours. Because, of course, if I'm dumb, then I'm not the smartest in the room and I cannot trust my own judgment. And if I cannot trust my own judgment, I will take the reality and the truth of other people above my own and as my own truth. And then ending up losing yourself, losing your trust with yourself, and forgetting and getting yourself stripped away from your own authenticity. All of that just because you started believing I'm dumb because you couldn't give grace to yourself when you were making that mistake, or because you failed at something, or because you couldn't manage something considered easy or simple. So that's how our brain works. It starts with this very small thing, but if we don't catch ourselves soon enough, it just spirals into that huge thing that becomes a block, a huge block on our road and our path of personal growth. And we're not in this world to play small. We're not in this world to not take our space. We're not in this world to stay unconscious. Since either way, our brain is going to believe the story that we tell to ourselves. Choose a positive narrative. Consciously choose a positive and empowering story to tell yourself. Let go of that negative self-talk. Challenge it every single time. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it real? Let it go. And when you cannot let it go, replace it with affirming and supportive statements that promote self-belief and growth. I mean, silencing our inner critic is hard because even if you were raised in the most loving and supportive family, every time that you went outside, maybe at school, with friends, growing up, what you were watching on TV, even products, the different industries, especially the beauty industry, all of these ideas that we're not affirming who you are, we're not affirming your individuality, but we're pushing you to conform into the trends, into the biased beauty standard, into what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, what it means to come from a Western country, what it means to come from an Eastern country or Southern country, what it means to have this nationality. So all of these labels unconsciously pushed us to not listen to our gut feeling, to not be aligned and proud and fully embracing our unique traits and our unique path. So obviously our inner critic is going to be loud and be, no, you're not supposed to do that. Or if you do that, X, Y, and Z. And when you've been doing that for years, for decades, obviously it's not going to be the easiest thing to do. On the other hand, your inner critic is also your protector because fitting in, conforming was a way to protect yourself. It was a way to not be ostracized. And as human beings, it is encoded in our DNA to live in groups, to live in tribes. So there is like this inner fear of being ostracized, of being the other, of not being part of the group, to not belong. So obviously the inner critic is not all bad. The inner critic is not there to just be like, you so bad for no reason. Obviously your inner critic served its purpose for a specific time. Maybe when you were a kid, you were supposed to act a certain way to belong to that group of friends. Otherwise, you will always be alone, and as a child, this is hard to be the one alone during rec time or having zero connection. Okay, that's fine. It protected you at that period of time. But now you grew up. Now, do you really need to act that way, the way that your inner critic is telling you to act, when it's so far from who you are, so far from your authenticity, so far from even your values and what you stand for deep inside because you're not expressing it? Do you still need that as your protection? Most of the time, the answer is no, not anymore. I don't need that anymore. But since it's been ingrained in you for so long, it's your job, once again, to be aware and to take that conscious choice to change the narrative, to change your story, the one that you tell to yourself, in order to change that self-talk, which influences your thoughts, emotions, and actions. We need to stop beating ourselves up for the smallest thing all the time. There is so much value in treating ourselves with kindness, with understanding, with acceptance, and even with softness. particularly in moments of self-doubt and failures. It is not the end of the world to fail. It's not the end of the world to doubt yourself sometimes. It's actually good sometimes to doubt yourself. I'm not saying drowning into your self-doubt, but having that self-doubt to assess yourself and be honest with yourself. Can I do that? Is it smart to do that right now, in this moment? Or can I maybe think about it another way? These are natural and normal and actually benefiting self-doubt. But if you going the other way and follow your inner critic down the self-doubt hole, where you're drowning in self-doubt, when you're not able to trust yourself anymore, when you're not able to see clearly anymore, that becomes a problem. But when you use kindness, understanding, acceptance, softness, when your self-doubt comes, it's easier for you to find a more aligned solution to your self-doubt. Positive self-talk is huge in order to reframe your negative thoughts. I have a whole video on positive self-talk. Go check it out. If you struggle with that, if you struggle with negative self-talk all the time and you don't know how to incorporate positive self-talk in your daily life. The word is so beautiful, but it's also so harsh in so many different ways. So please don't bring that harshness within yourself. Again, consciously choose uplifting and encouraging language when you address yourself. That self-compassion will help you cultivate a strong belief within yourself, in your own potential, in your own capabilities, and truly unleash what you're made of. Not everything is your fault. You have your own responsibility when it comes to yourself, but it doesn't mean that everything that's going wrong or that you don't manage to do is solely up on your shoulders. Give yourself some grace. Be okay with being a beginner. Be okay with not having everything figured out the first time around. Be okay with not being always right as well. It's okay. I'm so guilty of that. But it's important to cultivate that mindset of growth rooted in honesty and compassion. So we can tame that inner critic, that inner voice, which is not that nice with us most of the time. Let's make it nicer. Let's make it softer. Let's make it our best ally. So we can overcome our self-doubt, our negative self-talk, and foster personal development and empowerment. Our inner voice has the power to shape our reality. Let's not forget that. And I repeat, it's by being aware of our self-talk patterns that we can choose a positive narrative and silence our inner critic, or at least make it much more quieter, because it can be really loud, and nurture self-belief. Quieting that inner critic and nurture self-belief. Switch the tables upon yourself. Harness that power of your inner voice. Make it work for you by transforming it in an unwavering source of encouragement, inspiration, self-empowerment. Remember that you have the ability to shape your own narrative and create a life filled with limitless possibilities. But for that, make it a practice to talk to yourself nicer every single day, one step at a time, as always. Share in the comment section, what is the harshest thing that your inner critic tells you on a regular basis? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, stay true, keep showing up for yourself, and let your soul lead the way.